Alright, hello math fans. Alright, this is the review sheet for Chapter 9A, and let's go through it. So we got our key. Alright, my suggestion is go back through that chart that I gave you, and it was, remember we talked about the degree, and classifying by degree, and the number of terms, and classifying by number of terms, and some of the different terminology. What leading coefficient is, putting in descending order. Make sure you review all that, okay? Because this is just one example, and there's several different types of degrees, and if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more terms, make sure you know that. You have to know that. All right, so let's do the first one here. What is the degree? Remember, you look at the biggest exponent, so that's x squared. So that is going to be degree 2, and classify it, it's quadratic. Okay. What is a leading coefficient? That's the 5. That's the one. That's why you put it in descending order, and then you pull out the first term. So the leading coefficient is 5. How many terms are there in the polynomial? Well, there's 1, 2, 3 terms. Classify according to the number of terms. It's a trinomial. Okay. Remember, it's monomial, binomial, trinomial. Anything bigger than that is referred to as a polynomial. Okay, same thing with degree. If it's degree 0, it's just a constant term. If it was just, the polynomial was just a 5 or 105, it is just a constant. If it's degree 1, like x or 10x or 3x plus 2, that's linear. Second degree polynomial is quadratic. Third degree is cubic, right? Cube, x cubed. Fourth degree polynomial, quartic, like 4 quarts in a gallon or 4 quarters in a dollar, so quartic. All right, and the last one, number 4, is name the constant term. And the constant term is just the number, right? Constant. Which one is the only one that doesn't have a variable? Is the number 1. So this guy right here, right? That's your constant term. So the constant term is 1. Okay, the next one, next part says perform the indicated operations. And really, another name for this would be simplify. Okay, and if you see things are in parentheses, and it says perform the operations or simplify, your goal here is to get no parentheses. That's it. Now factor, which is the second part of this worksheet, factoring means you put it in parentheses. Very important. Okay, so this is actually really easy. Notice there's a plus sign between these. That means we're just going to say 7x cubed minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 2 plus 9x cubed plus 7x squared minus 3x minus 5. Okay, I just want to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read here. All right. Anyway, we've got all our terms written out. The plus sign just means basically you rewrite every term in this parenthesis. Just rewrite it, okay, with the sign that it has, and then you combine like terms. And remember, I told you if you need to, if you're having a difficult time with signs, circle the term with the sign. Okay, that kind of helps a little bit, so you don't lose the sign. So 7x cubed plus 9x cubed is 16x cubed. So these are done. Negative 3x squared plus 7x squared is positive 4x squared. Those are used. Negative 4x minus 3x is negative 7x. Those are used. And 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And that's it. We used everything. So that's your answer, 16x cubed plus 4x squared minus 7x minus 3. Okay, now the next one, we've got a minus sign in between them. So we just change the sign. It's really you're distributing a negative 1, or you're changing the sign in every term in that second parentheses. So you have 4z cubed plus z squared minus 2z plus 1 minus 2z cubed plus 7z minus 4. Okay, and then you combine your like terms. You don't need to do this, but again, if you know that you're going to make a mistake, then go for it. Okay, it's 4z cubed minus 2z cubed is 2z cubed. That takes care of that one. Z squared, and there's no other z squared here, so it's just plus z squared. Negative 2z plus 7z is plus 5z. And 1 minus 4 is minus 3. And that's your answer. Okay. Number 7. Same thing. So, and I want you guys to notice this, that sometimes you'll have a plus sign, sometimes you'll have a minus sign, and sometimes if there's no sign, remember it's multiplication. Okay, don't forget that. It's really important. All right, so anyway, this one, again, we distribute the negative or change the sign here, and we have 2x squared minus x minus 2x squared plus 3x. Okay, so those are our terms. And 2x squared minus 2x squared, it just cancels. It's 0. It's gone. So it's negative. Then you have negative x plus 3x is 2x. And that's your answer. All right, number 8. Again, there's a minus sign in between them. So we're going to just distribute the negative. So it's 5n cubed minus 3n plus 7 minus 3n cubed minus n squared plus 5. So let's circle these guys again. 5n cubed minus 3n cubed is 2n cubed. And then there's no n squared except for 1, so it's minus n squared. And then there's only one 3n, so it's minus 3n. And then 7 plus 5 is 12. And there we go. And again, it's always in descending order. Okay, very important. And I'm just going to make a little note here too, right in the top corner here. Just remember, math fans, when you're adding, it's like 3n plus 5n. It's equal to 8n. All right? Please don't say 3n plus 5n is 8n squared. It's not. It's like saying if you've got 3 n's and I'm handing you 5 more n's, how many n's do you have? You have 8 n's. You have no n squareds in your hand. Okay, so you got to remember that, as opposed to if you do multiplication, 3n times 5n, okay, that's 15, and then remember you add the exponents, so these are 1s, so then it's 15n squared. But don't make that mistake. When you're adding, the exponents need to be the same, and then they stay the same as you add. All right, just like what we've done in the over here for these few problems. So don't forget that. All right, so let's do a couple more here. It's going to be this is addition, so it's just 6x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 minus 2x cubed. Just keep the signs the same. Plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 5. And we combine our like terms. So I'm not going to circle everything. You guys can if you want. That's good. It's 6x cubed minus 2x cubed is 4x cubed. 2x squared plus 3x squared is plus 5x squared. Again, please don't tell me 2x squared plus 3x squared is 5x to the fourth. It's not. You've got 2x squareds in your hand, and you're handed 3 more x squareds. You've got 5x squareds. Okay, very important. Okay, and then negative 3x plus 4x is plus 1x, and negative 2 plus 5 is plus 3. And that's your answer for that one. Okay, not too bad so far here. Okay, and last one with adding and subtracting. So number 10, it's negative 2x squared minus x plus x squared minus 4x. Because it's addition, so you just rewrite it. And then combine your terms, negative 2x squared plus 1x squared. Remember, that is a 1, so don't forget, it's 1x squared is negative x squared. So that's that one. And then negative x minus 4x is negative 5x. All right, and that's your final answer. And sometimes people are tempted to factor this and to say, oh, well, I can take out a greatest common factor. That's not what we're doing here. We're actually simplifying. Okay, we're adding or we're subtracting. If you see the word factor, then you're going to put all your skills together that, where you found a greatest common factor and difference of two squares and whatever. Okay, so please don't factor these. There's no parenthesis involved. For all these problems, no parenthesis for your final answer. And same thing with these next few problems here. If you look, it says multiply. Okay, I could also say the word simplify. That's another word. All right, but notice there's all parentheses. that means you are going to FOIL or distribute or whatever, but all these, again, are going to be no parentheses. Huge, very huge, people. Okay, this one, please don't make that number one mistake that I told you in class that people make, is people just square the x, they square the negative 19, and they get an answer. If you see a problem like this squared, you have to write it twice. Okay, you have to. If you don't, you're just going to square two terms, and you're going to wind up with x squared plus 361, because that's what 19 squared is. Now, do most people know that? No. So you're going to use your calculator. You're going to say 19 squared. But anyway, let's actually multiply it out now that we wrote it twice. We're just going to do FOIL. So it's x squared outside minus 19x, inside minus 19x, and last plus, and then you're going to do negative 19 times negative 19 is positive 361. You combine your like terms, which basically means you're going to combine these middle terms. So you get x squared minus 38x plus 361. That's your answer. There's no parentheses. You're done with the problem. Okay? This next one's a little tricky. And the only reason this one's a little tricky is because you have x squared here and an x. Okay? No big deal. But you're going to do FOIL. Remember, first, outside, inside, and last. Just a way to multiply things out. And please notice, like if number 10 here, number 10 you had a plus sign in between. There is no plus sign. And you have to realize, even like when you're taking a quiz and a test, if there's a plus sign, you add it. It's actually even easier than multiplying, so you add things together. If there's no plus or minus sign, you're going to FOIL, or you're going to multiply. All right, so here, let's do first, outer, inner, last. So x squared times x is x cubed. That's first. Outside, x squared times 3 is plus 3x. Inside, minus 4x. And last, minus 12. Actually, this is 3x squared. I think I might have said that, but it's okay. So first, outer, x squared times 3 is 3x squared. Now you're going, okay, and I need to combine like terms. Well, you should realize there's no like terms to combine. You're actually done with the problem. It's in descending order, and there's no terms, no variables that have the same exponent. You're done with that problem. Okay? This next one, I'm just going to distribute that negative 5x. So negative 5x times x squared is negative 5x cubed. Negative 5x times negative 3x is positive 15x squared. Negative 5x times 8 is negative 40x. That's it. No like terms to combine. Okay, the next one is FOIL. Now you should recognize this. It's x plus 14, x minus 14. That's going to be one of our special cases, okay, where the inside and the outside term cancel out. But let's just multiply it out just for the heck of it anyway. X times x is x squared minus 14x plus 14x. And 14 times 14 is 196. So minus 196. And if you notice, this guy right here, these two, they cancel out. And you wind up with x squared minus 196. Okay, so that's only when it's opposite. Everything's the same except the signs are opposite. Okay, 15 is a little tricky. You got some, you got two variables here. Not a big deal. Just gonna do FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times 6y is plus 6xy. X times 12y is plus 12xy. And 12y times 6y is plus 72y squared. Okay, these are the only terms you combine. So you have x squared plus 18xy plus 72y squared. That one's a little more complicated, but you just got to kind of put the variables together. Okay, next one. See that squared, man? Right away, you got to write it twice. So 2x plus 1, 2x plus 1. Okay, so then I FOIL. 2x times 2x, 4x squared. Don't forget the squared. 2x times 1 is plus 2x. 1 times 2x plus 2x. And then plus 1. So your answer, combining these like terms, 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. Okay, next one. Notice it's plus minus. Well, I can still FOIL it out, but let's do that. 49x squared minus 7x outside, inside plus 7x minus 1. Of course, these cancel. So you get 49x squared minus 1. Okay, next one, FOIL again. 4x times x, 4x squared. Outside, minus 8x. Inside, plus 3x. And last, minus 6. So you get 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, number 19, a little bit more work because it's not just FOIL. You actually have a binomial times a trinomial. So it's x times all three terms, and then negative 3 times all three terms. It's everything in the first set of parentheses times everything in the second set of parentheses. So I'm going to do x times x squared is x cubed. X cubed. And then x times negative 8x is negative 8x squared. And x times 4 is plus 4x. Negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times negative 8x is plus 24x. And negative 3 times 4 is minus 12. And then you combine your like terms. So there's a like term. And there's no x cubes except for 1. So x cubed, negative 8x squared minus 3x squared is negative 11x squared. 4x plus 24x is plus 28x. And then there's only 1 minus 12. So that's your answer. Okay. Next one, same thing. 2x times 3x squared, 6x cubed. 2x times negative 8x, negative 16x squared. 2x times negative 1, negative 2x. And then 7. 7 times 3x squared, 21x squared. 7 times negative 8, negative 56x. And 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. Combine your like terms. So nothing with the x cubed. Here's negative 16x squared plus 21x squared is plus 5x squared. And then negative 2x minus 56 is negative 58x. And then minus 7. And that's your answer. Okay, the next section is factoring. Now remember, math fans, this answer means you are going to have parentheses. Okay, that's important. You're going to have parentheses in there. If you have no parentheses, whatever, if you don't do it right, it's not correct. Well, that makes sense, right? If you don't do it right, it's incorrect. But remember, you got to have parentheses here. So we got a bunch of trinomials, and you're looking for combinations. Okay. Remember, yeah, it can be non-factorable. Not many of them are non-factorable. So don't be writing, oh, a whole bunch of non-factorables. Think of the combinations. The first key here is, first of all, I got 3 terms here. I'm putting 2 parentheses, okay, and my signs. This is minus, so that means they're opposite signs, plus, minus. All right, and you're trying your different combinations. Remember a couple things. If the signs are the only thing after you solve it, the signs are wrong. Make sure you just, that checking the OI. Make sure you check it, and or make sure you just flip the sign. Okay, and you're not allowed to have a greatest common factor, so you can't have like 2x plus 6 in one parenthesis. It's got to be like a 2x plus 1 or 2x plus 5. All right, so I'm just going to, I know you can try different things here, but I'm going to write down the answer. It's x and x, and then it's plus 1 and minus 4. And again, it doesn't matter the order. It could be x minus 4, x plus 1, but that's going to give you the solution, because if you check the OI, you get negative 4x plus x equals negative 3x, and that is our goal, is negative 3x. Okay? The next one, you get your combinations of 3. 3 and 1, 8 is going to be 4 and 2, and 8 and 1. Okay, and again, I would probably try the middle ones first. Probably a better shot at it, unless that 2y was a huge number. That's probably the best way to go. So anyway, your signs are going to be plus minus again. And then you're going to do y, it's going to work out to y plus 2, and 3y minus 4. That's your answer. Because if I check the OI, I get negative 4y plus 6y is positive 2y. And that's what we're trying to go for here. Okay? Next one. Signs are plus plus. So you get m, and a lot of combinations here. 32 can be 8 and 4, 16 and 2, 32 and 1. And so I'm going to try the 8 and 4, and 8 and 4 works. Because again, the OI gives me 4m plus 8m is 12m. And that's our goal. Okay, your next problem. Now, I probably should have mentioned this right in the beginning. Remember, when you're doing these problems, first of all, they have to be in descending order. Then you look for greatest common factor, and then you try to factor it one of the other ways. You know, with a trinomial or difference of two squares. Now, if you look at this problem, this one's got a greatest common factor. The greatest common factor for this one is 3. So that's what I want to do first. You've got to do that first. You've got to factor out a 3. So 3 parentheses, and then it's x squared plus x minus 2. And that one looks like a good candidate to try and factor. It's got an x squared, an x, a constant term, and actually that does factor out nicely. Remember, that's a 1 and a 1, and the 2 is 2 and a 1. So we have x and x. The signs are plus and minus, and the combination that works here is plus 2 and minus 1. Okay, that's your answer for that problem. All right, 25 looks a little more complicated, but not a big deal. Okay, we're going to do 8 and 2, 4 and 4, 16 and 1. 49, the only two numbers are 7 and 7. That's kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to make my parentheses here. And it's plus here, so it's got to be both negative because they're the same sign. And it's going to be 4, turn out to be 4y and 7 and 4y and 7. So if I check the OI, that's negative 28y minus 28y. That gives you negative 56y, which is perfect. All right, but remember, if you have the same term, you need to write it as 4y minus 7 quantity squared. That's your answer. All right. If it's the same, you got to write it as one term squared. Very important. Okay, the next one. X and x. Well, it's got to be 1 and 1, right? That's all it is. It's got to be plus 1, plus and plus, 1 and 1. It has to be that. Well, if I check it, I get 1x plus 1x is 2x. It's 1x. This is the only combination I can have, so this is can't factor. CFB. Can't factor, baby. Okay? That's a nice non-factorable guy. Okay. 27. Okay, that looks kind of complicated. Take your calculator and you'll find the square root of that number. Okay, and the square root of 324 is, I guess the reason you check it is because it's two terms. That's a perfect square. There's a minus sign, so take your calculator and do the square root of 324. And you're going to see it's 18. Okay, so that factors to, that's the difference of two squares. X plus 18, x minus 18. Okay, next one, greatest common factor. You could factor a 2 out of there. So I'm going to factor 2. So 2 times 4n squared minus 9. And then that's a difference of two squares. So it's the square root of 4n squared is 2n and 2n. The square root of 9 is 3 and 3. So it's plus and minus. Okay, that was pretty mellow. Okay, next one, descending order. So you're going to write x squared minus 4. And then you factor. So that one's actually pretty easy. That's x plus 4. Oh, sorry, x plus 2, the square root of 4, and x minus 2. That's it. That's your answer. Okay, the next one, combinations. No greatest common factor. 1 and 1, and 7 and 2, or 7 and 6, sorry, and 21 and 2, and 42 and 1. All right, so again, you kind of learn a little bit what it's supposed to be. I mean, I would definitely go for the 7 and the 6. And x, and it's both negative, so do 7 and 6. And that's your answer. Okay, next one, 1 and 1, 5 and 7, and 35 and 1. All right. Well, 35 and 1 doesn't look too promising. So you get y and y, and it's negative 2y. So I'm going to make it negative 7 and plus 5, and that one works out to give you negative 2y. Okay, the next one, no greatest common factor. It's already in descending order. I'm going to do, well, it's 1 and 1. And, 10 and 10. Well, you could try a bunch of combinations, but the 10 and the 10 is the one that's going to give you the 20x. So it's x, both plus plus, right? X plus 10, x plus 10. So make sure you write it as x plus 10 quantity squared. All right. Okay, 33. Boo! There's a plus sign here. Okay, can't factor, baby. It looks like a difference of two squares, but it's a plus sign. Can't do anything with it. You're done. All right. Next one, x squared. I'm going to put it in descending order. And then you factor. So, right, you got your combinations of, that's just x and x. You know that. 24 is 8 and 3. 6 and 4, 12 and 1, or 12 and 2, and 24 and 1. Okay, again, you can kind of see which ones are going to work. First of all, they're both minus. Well, the 8 and the 3 are going to give you the 11. So that's why it's x minus 8 and x minus 3. Okay. All right, this next one here is got to put in descending order. So it's going to be okay, number 35, got to put it in descending order first. So it's going to be negative 33n squared minus 8n plus 1. All right, first thing, greatest common factor, there's nothing to take out except this negative. You can't have a leading coefficient of negative. So you're going to divide everything by negative 1. So it's negative parentheses 33n squared plus 8n minus 1. Okay, that looks kind of brutal, but you're just getting your combinations of 33. Well, the only one that really works is 11 and 3, and there's also 33 and 1. But I'm trying to get an 8n here, so you can even see that 11 minus 3 is going to give you 8. So that's the deal. We're going to do 11n and 3n. It's plus and minus, so the combination that's going to work here is it's got to be a positive 8, right? So it's going to be plus 1 here and minus 1 here. And if you do the OI, right, it's 11n minus 3n equals positive 8n, and that's what we're going for, positive 8n. So this is my final answer, math fans. Don't forget that negative. If you factor greatest common factor out, you've got to put that negative in there. Or whatever it is, you've got to put it in there. That's really important. Okay? All right, next thing. It's in descending order. Greatest common factor. I can factor out an x squared. It's the smallest variable. So I get x squared, and then I get x squared minus 1. Now, again, once you do greatest common factor, you're not necessarily done with the problem. In fact, we're not. We see an x squared minus 1. So that's a difference of two squares. So the square root of x squared is x, and x. Square root of 1 is 1. So it's x plus 1, x minus 1. And that's your answer. Okay, number 37. Now, before you start the problem out, you got to put it in descending order. Okay, that's actually always the first thing you do. So notice, let's put some exponents on these. Like this y's got y to the first, that's x to the first, and that's y to the first. So if I add these up, this one goes first. This guy right here goes first, right? Because it's 3 plus 1 is 4. So that's negative 9 x cubed y. The next one is this plus 6 x squared y. And the last one is plus 3x. Okay, that's in descending order. And then what you're going to do is you you want to factor a number out. And of course, we're going to factor a negative out, but it's negative 3. And if you notice, the smallest variable is x. There's no y. This one, the last term doesn't have a y. So that's not even part of our greatest common factor. So we're going to factor an x out. And don't forget to write it in there. Negative 3x. And then we have, if you divide that, we get positive 3x squared y. You get minus 2xy. Okay? And remember, don't just cancel it out. It's 3x divided by negative 3x. If you have 3 terms there, you're going to have 3 terms inside of your parentheses, so it's minus 1. Okay? All right, next one. That's pretty mellow. That's going to be b and, or it's just 1 and 1, right? 1 and 1. And 144, well, that's a little tricky. But again, you kind of almost recognize it as a perfect square. It's what combination that does work is 12 and 12. So it's going to be b and b, minus minus, and 12 and 12. Remember, it's the same thing, so you can write it as b minus 12 squared. Okay, number 39. No, it's in descending order, no greatest common factor. So it's going to be, you got a bunch of combinations here, 6 and 6, and 9 and 4, 12 and, I'm not even going to write them all out. There's a lot of them, and this is 1 and 1. That's actually, that makes it nice. Okay, so when you do this guy, the one that does work is 6y and 6y. And you know it's plus plus, and it has to be a 1 and a 1. So if I check it, I get 6y plus 6y is 12y. That's beautiful. But remember, write it as 6y plus 1 squared. Okay. This next one here is 3x minus 4z. Well, here, I'm going to write it out. It's a difference of 2 squares. So the square root of 9x squared is 3x and 3x. The square root of 16z is 4z and 4z, and then it's plus and minus. All right. Okay, 41, it's in descending order. Greatest common factor is 6, so I'm going to factor 6 out first. And I get 6, and then in parentheses I get x squared minus 2x plus 7. And if you try to factor this, what's going to happen is you have 7 and 1 and 1 and 1. So if I try it, I can only do x and x, and 7 and 1 is my only combination, and it's minus minus. And that gives you negative x minus 7x is negative 8x. Well, that's not the correct answer, so actually your answer is this. That's the only other combination. So sometimes you can only do a greatest common factor, which I just did here. Sometimes you can do more, but that doesn't work. So it's 6 parentheses x squared minus 2x plus 7. All right. Next problem, it's in descending order. Divide both sides by 15x. So I get 15x, and then I get x plus 1. And that's your answer. Okay, it's no more. You can't do anything else with it. Okay, let's do number 43. Definitely have a greatest common factor. So you can divide everything by 10. So you get 10 parentheses, and you get x squared minus 3x minus 15. Okay, and then you try to factor that trinomial. And of course, our x is going to be 1 and 1. 15 is going to be 15 and 1, or 3 and 5. Well, definitely we're going to go with the 3 and the 5. Okay, and we're going to have x and x, and well, we know the 15 and 1 aren't going to work. So if we do the 3 and the 5, it's going to be minus 5 and plus 3. Well, that's not even going to work though, or is it? It's going to give us 3x minus 5x is actually negative 2x. I want negative 3x, so once again, you can't factor the whole thing, but that is the problem. It's 10 parentheses x squared minus 3x minus 15. Please don't tell me you can't factor. If you can do the smallest thing, if you can factor out a negative 1, you factor the problem, and that's what you're going to put on the blank. If you can't do the smallest thing to the problem, you write can't factor. Okay? So next problem. Definitely take out a 2 and an x. So divide by 2x, 2x, and 2x. So I get 2x parenthesis 12x squared minus 11x plus 2. Okay, and then it's a trinomial, so I'm going to give it a shot with factoring it. So I'm going to have my signs are going to be minus minus, and you got 6 and 2 and 4 and 3 and 12 and 1. Well, the combination that actually works for this one is 4x and 1 and 3x and 2. That's the combination, because if I check it and I do OI, I get negative 8x minus 3x is negative 11x, which is that middle term right there. So this then is my answer. All right. Okay, next one, put it in descending order. Negative x squared minus 9x minus 20. Factor out negative 1. So negative parenthesis x squared plus 9x plus 20. And then you try and factor that. So 20 is going to be 5 and 4, which is exactly the answer. X plus 5, x plus 4. And you're done with the problem. Okay? So just again to remind you guys, first is descending order. The second step is GCF, and that includes no negative as a leading coefficient. And the third step is you just look for trinomials are like where you get your factors, right? You get your like number 44, you're saying, oh, it's 12 is 6 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so that's kind of problem. Don't forget, if you have problems that give you the same thing, x plus 2, that's x plus 2 squared. You have binomials, and that's giving you, looking for a difference of two squares. So x squared minus 25, that factors to x plus 5, x minus 5. All right, so those are the things you look for. One last thing here, if I just have a problem like, let's see, here's one example, negative 25 minus x squared. First thing you do, put it in descending order, so it's negative x squared minus 25. Factor out negative 1, so I get x squared plus 25. And you should recognize that plus right there, math fans, you can't do it, but don't put can't factor because you just factored negative 1 out of there. So this goes in the answer blank. It's really important to do that. All right, one thing, the smallest thing, you have factored it, that goes in the answer blank. All right, well anyway, that's the review, math fans. Get ready for this for the test, and remember, if it says simplify or add or multiply, no parentheses. If it says factor, you're going to put it in parentheses. Got to remember that. All right? That's it, math fans. Have a nice day. Goodbye.